I've officially hit the third trimester with our second baby, and I want to share with you all of the things that happened over this second trimester. And since this is our second baby, I can kind of compare things to how it was last time, as well as I have a wild story for you of something that happened in the second trimester. So make sure you stay tuned to the end because I will share that story with you and you're honestly not going to believe it. But to start off with, I want to talk about some of the big highlights that happened in the second trimester, which happened for a lot of people. Number one, we found out the gender. So if you don't know yet, we already have a little boy who is not quite 2, and we're gonna have another boy, and they are gonna be very, very close to 2 years apart, depending on when I go into labor. So I'm really excited to have 2 boys that are 2 years apart. I think it's gonna be a great age gap, and hoping that they just become the best of friends. I'm really excited to see what baby number 2 looks like if he looks similar to our first son, Owen, or if he's gonna look different. Our first son, Owen, is very blonde haired and blue eyed. And looking at me, clearly I have darker hair and more brown hazel eyes. So we don't look a ton alike, at least in the coloring of our features. So I'm wondering what baby number 2 is gonna look like. I'm already dreaming of having the 2 of them in cute little matching outfits and stuff. So I have made some purchases for baby number 2, even though we have a lot of hand-me-down clothing. I wanted to get some new things, and they're pretty much exclusively outfits that are going to match with what I got for Owen as well. So I think that's so fun that they're close together in age, and there are a lot of different options that I can purchase where they are the same size and they're in the same category of clothing, because if you have kids that are really far apart in age, sometimes it's hard to find things that are matching. Another big thing that happened was we, of course, announced our pregnancy to both friends and family, as well as, since I'm on social media like this, I did announce on social media, which was a fun step. It's just really exciting to share a pregnancy, no matter what the circumstances are. It's just a gift, and I am so grateful for it and have really enjoyed the fact that my bump is growing and I am obviously pregnant in public now. I love chatting about being pregnant, so I've really enjoyed just being out in the open and pregnant. Something else that I think we've come to a conclusion on is I think we picked out a name. I'm not going to share it yet. I have shared with some of my family members just because this name is already used in our family. I have a couple of cousins that have this name, but honestly, I've thought about it, and my opinion is if you have a name that you want to name your child that name. It doesn't matter if you know somebody else who has that name or your friend named their kid that name. This is your kid's name, and you're gonna want to pick something that you love. And I know I have friends personally that don't want to share the top names they have picked out for their potential future children because they don't want somebody to steal it. I just don't really think that's a concept. I would not care if somebody named their child Owen or use the same name that I have for one of my kids. Honestly, it's flattering that they like the same name that I picked out for my kid. So with this name, I was originally thinking I would never name my child it, even though I loved it because I had family members that had the same name. But like I said, I've moved past that concept, and I think we've officially decided on a name. Typically at 20 weeks, there is an anatomy scan or a longer ultrasound where they look at baby in detail, their hands and their feet and all of their different organs, and make sure everything's looking good. And we had a great anatomy scan. Everything looks very healthy as far as they can tell. And we've had numerous doctor's appointments in between, before that and after that. And the pregnancy in general has been going really smoothly. In terms of symptoms for the second trimester, it's kind of gone up and down, very similar to my first pregnancy in the sense that the worst symptoms that I have throughout the pregnancy and really in the second trimester have been insomnia. Also adding to it now a little bit more is I'm starting to get uncomfortable as I sleep, physically trying to find a good position, just because now you're not supposed to lay on your back once you hit a certain point in pregnancy in your second trimester, just because of all of the pressure. So that's off the table. Can't sleep on my stomach anymore in the second trimester. That's also off the table. So I'm trying to sleep on my sides. I broke out the pregnancy pillow, which does help a lot with the physical discomfort of sleeping, but I also just have this insomnia where I can usually fall asleep pretty well, and I talked about this in my first trimester recap video, but wake up at random times in the middle of the night, and I'm up for what feels like hours. Our first has also had some waking up in the middle of the night recently, which happens. Kids go through lots of random sleep regressions, but because of that, when he wakes up and I go take care of him and come back to bed, I am just wide awake and really struggling with sleeping. So as I also said in my first trimester recap video, I do take half a Unisom pill every now and then, but do it pretty rarely. And it's just something I feel like I have to deal with in pregnancy. I had a lot of weird cramping and almost like Charlie horses in my legs with my first pregnancy, and luckily haven't experienced that, at least yet this time. The other main symptom that I have has been extremely bad lower back pain. So what I did last pregnancy as well as this one is that I have been going to a chiropractor, and honestly I can't tell you if it's helping or not. She does do some KT tape on my back, which that does feel like it really helps, but I don't know if I need to go to a chiropractor to have them do that for me. So I talked to my OB about it a little bit more, and she suggested doing physical therapy and going specifically to a pelvic floor and core physical therapist, because all of those things are connected, and it just doesn't hurt going to pelvic floor PT while you are pregnant, or if you're somebody who's going through these pregnancies and postpartum periods, because it's just a lot on your body, and sometimes you don't know what you don't know. You don't know if things aren't functioning properly. They did a whole evaluation and assessment for me, and after that appointment, I was still kind of unsure if I thought it was worth it. They wanted me to start going once a week, and I felt like, I don't know, maybe they're just doing this to anybody who walks through the door, and I don't really have problems that they can fix. But I went back a few more times. I've had some scheduling things going on, but the few times I've gone back, I think they've given me some pretty good exercises to do. It's usually almost an hour session. So there's part that's more in the clinical part of the office. They've done cupping on my back, which feels really good. They can also do the KT tape. And then the other part is in their little gym, and we do different exercises, working on things that I didn't even know were muscle groups or things that I could or should be working on. So I am going to continue with the PT through my third trimester, and we'll see about the chiropractor. I'll probably keep going, but might reduce it just a little bit because I don't think that's as effective as the PT might be. I have been really active still. I make it a point to try and get in a lot of exercise and exercise as often as possible. I have been using a pregnancy fitness program and done a really great job keeping up with it. I did talk about in my first trimester how I was doing much better with running in this pregnancy than with my first, and that has now kind of tapered off. I think it was a little bit of discomfort, but mostly just life circumstances, or I had a few days where I didn't feel like running. And for me personally, when I get out of that running groove, it's really hard to build back up. I can't necessarily pick up exactly where I left off, and I have to go back a little bit, do some more walk, jog type stuff, reduce the amount of time that I'm running or the pace or speed that I'm going. And in pregnancy, I typically like to maintain whatever I'm doing. I don't like to start building up a new exercise routine. And since I feel like I've fallen off of running, I'm not necessarily interested in building back up again when I'm heading into my third trimester. So I'm thinking that running might be mostly done at this point in pregnancy, but exercise I'm trying to keep up, just exercising the same amount and do more body weight and weighted exercises and other physical activities that don't necessarily involve running. Other things that have been going on in this pregnancy in terms of what's going on with baby, I felt kicks so early on, honestly about 14 weeks, I started feeling the smallest movements and was thinking, I don't know, is this a kick? I'm not 100% sure. It seems really early. And then after that, I am telling you, I started feeling it pretty often, like every day almost. And so I'm thinking I started feeling kicks about 14 weeks, and at our 20-week anatomy scan, I did find out that I have a posterior placenta, which I think makes it a lot easier to feel the kicks because the placenta is back, whereas with my first pregnancy, I had an anterior placenta where your placenta is forward and it makes it harder to feel the kicks. And I didn't feel kicks with Owen till probably 21 weeks, and still wasn't sure if I was feeling stuff, and it felt so light and gentle. And at 21 weeks this time, I can physically or could physically see my stomach moving, and the kicks were so strong. So where that placenta is makes a huge difference. And I know when you are a second time mom, you know what you're looking for a little bit more, and you tend to feel those kicks earlier. Whereas when you're a first-time mom, you're not really sure when you feel a kick that was a kick. You might think, oh, my stomach's gurgling or something like that. But this time it has been so much fun feeling the baby kicks, because that's one of my favorite parts of being pregnant. And I love at night just like sitting there and feeling him kick and just having a moment to connect, especially because having a toddler around, this pregnancy is going by a lot faster, and I don't have as much time to sit and focus on it as I did with the first, because I have another kid and I'm running around and busy with work and all of those things. So night is the time where I just sit down and focus on the baby in my belly. The other thing that I have been doing in the second trimester is beginnings of baby prep. Really not a ton going on yet, but I have made a large to-do list, which I would suggest if you're in your second trimester doing as well, of all of the things that I want to get done before baby gets here. And that's not just necessarily in the traditional sense of baby prep, like installing your car seat and building a crib and those types of things. I've also included house projects and other projects that I want to get done before we have a second child and our life gets even more complicated. So though I haven't done a ton with it yet, I think having that list will really help. The one major thing that I've done is I'm actually sitting in the nursery right now, and I'm calling it the nursery because it used to be Owen's room. And this past week, we have just transitioned him into a different bedroom. We're gonna keep this the nursery and have it for baby number 2, and then Owen now has like a big boy room. My parents came in town last week and helped me to put some wallpaper up in Owen's new big boy room, and since we have 2 kids really close together in age, I did build a second crib in there for him and have gotten a dresser and moved his clothing over there. So that room is good enough. It's not done, but good enough for him to start sleeping in there and to start getting adjusted before the second baby shows up. And I really don't want him to feel like he's getting pushed out of this room because someone else showed up and we're all focused on this baby and he's just getting pushed to the side. I wanted him to feel excited about this big boy room and to make the transition with plenty of time before a baby arrives. And I think this is plenty of time because we still have 3 months or so of this pregnancy, and then the baby's gonna be in our room for a fair amount of time before transitioning into this room. So should be great timing, but I do need to finish up prepping both rooms and getting them completely organized and decorated and all done. Something else that I spent a lot of time doing in the second trimester was traveling. The second trimester is a great time to travel just because typically people are feeling better, you are over some of that nausea and morning sickness and just feeling gross from the first trimester, and you're not quite to the third trimester where you're feeling really uncomfortable and travel is a lot more difficult with bathroom breaks and all of that stuff. So we took, I'm trying to remember all the trips. We took at least 2 trips, road trips to Minnesota, which is about a 6 or so hour drive. We had a couple of weddings that we went to. We did a baby moon to Grand Cayman. We went to the Cayman Islands, and that I am so happy we took the time to slow down, focus on baby number 2 here. Owen stayed back and stayed with my in-laws, so my husband and I had some alone time, which was really nice. We haven't had a vacation, really, just the two of us, because we got married in 2020 and weren't able to travel really, and then we had a baby pretty quickly, or I got pregnant pretty quickly. Didn't do a baby moon with the first baby, so this was a really nice and special trip for the two of us to take, and felt so relaxed when we came back and refreshed and ready to tackle everything at home and for the arrival of baby number 2. The other trips that I took 2 work trips, and this is where the crazy story is gonna come in just a second. The first one was to Charleston, and that trip was so much fun. My work surprised me when I was there with one of the breakfasts that I showed up to. They turned it into a surprise baby shower, and they had a little cake made out of diapers. They had some baby shower games that we played. They had a few other gifts for me. It was just so sweet. And then they also did a team building ropes course, one of those high ropes courses where you're in a harness and up high. And being pregnant, I was told that I should not be doing that. Of course, that makes sense. So they booked me a spa treatment while the rest of the team went and did this ropes course in team building. I got a massage and a facial and a foot scrub. So it was like a spa afternoon, which was just lovely and really nice to feel pampered and to celebrate this baby, because I'm still not sure if we're gonna do a baby shower with baby number 2. So it was fun to still do that, at least through work, and really appreciate all my coworkers doing that for me and for the baby. The second work trip was to New York, where my company is headquartered, and this trip ended in such a wild way. I flew out to New York just for 2 nights, and when I was flying back the evening before my flight, I had an early morning flight, I just started feeling like I was having some pain in my lower belly. I was maybe a little bit nauseous, just not feeling great. So in the morning on my way to the airport, I called my OB and talked to one of the nurses there, explained all my symptoms. I wanted to make sure I wasn't going into some sort of preterm labor, and asked if I should still get on the plane. They said, you should be fine to get on the plane, but when you land, we'll make time for you to come in and have an appointment. So whenever you land, let us know you're on your way, and we will see you in the office for an appointment. So I was thinking to myself, okay, I just gotta make it home. I was flying from New York to Omaha, a direct flight, about 3 or so hours, and then I would land and go straight to the office. So if something was wrong, I would be there. Really not that long. Of course, I took off on the plane, and very quickly after we took off and were up, I started getting extremely nauseous. Couldn't get comfortable in my seat. I was like rolling all around. Luckily, it wasn't a full flight, so I had the row to myself. I was trying to like lay down, and at one point I just like took off my seatbelt. I could not be strapped down anymore, and then stood up, went to the back, told the flight attendant I was gonna throw up. She helped me out with that, and basically I couldn't go back to my seat for the rest of the flight. I was on the floor, writhing around in pain, and the pain just got progressively worse, but it was mostly flank pain in my left back here. And I have a history of having kidney stones, and once I started feeling that pain, I was pretty sure it was a kidney stone, but of course, no way to know when you're up in the air, and the pain just continued to get progressively worse. And since this was at the beginning of the flight, I still had hours to go, and the flight attendants were communicating with the pilot and communicating with the ground. I remember at one point early on, I said, like, is there any way that they could have an ambulance meet us when we land? Because I was like, this is not an office visit when I land. I need to go to an emergency room. Something is not right. As the flight kept going, they made the decision to divert the plane for an emergency medical landing for me. We ended up landing in Chicago. That was just the nearest city, and was taken off in a little stretcher and brought straight to the nearest hospital in Chicago, where we landed. And it turned into this whole crazy 1.5 week long experience. I was having a kidney stone. It was a complete blockage, which caused the pain to be so intense, even compared to my other kidney stones that I've had. And I've talked about this a little bit on my other channel, Sophisticated Organization, but this pain, I think, is worse than childbirth. Kidney stones are terrible. At least with contractions, the pain comes and goes. With kidney stones, it is pretty much constant pain when you're at the point of the stone moving through your body, unless you're getting a narcotic or some sort of painkiller. That's really the only relief that you can get. And I just could not stay on top of my pain. I had one surgery in Chicago. My mom actually flew out to be with me, so I wasn't alone, because this situation was even scarier. The fact that I was on the plane alone and landing in Chicago. So she came with me. I was finally discharged. She booked a flight near the same time as mine to make sure I got on very safely. I made it home to Nebraska, and about 24 hours later, I was in the same exact pain. So we went to the emergency room here and was admitted to the hospital there, and ended up staying for another 5 or so days. Had another surgery, and of course this entire time I'm about 26 weeks pregnant, extremely worried about how the baby is doing, but also in a lot of physical pain trying to deal with this kidney stone and all of that. Luckily, the baby was doing awesome, doing great the entire time. When you are this far along in pregnancy, they typically have you stay on a labor and delivery floor if you're having some sort of medical issue that brings you into the hospital, even if it's not related to the baby, just so they can monitor everything. They were doing a lot of non-stress tests where they monitor the baby's heart rate for 20 minutes. And they would do that on and off periodically. They would check the baby before I went in surgery, after surgeries, and it was reassuring that they were on top of it. A lot of treatments, they were trying to be more conservative because I am pregnant. They wanted to reduce the radiation I was exposed to with different scans that I needed, as well as certain medications I can't take when I'm pregnant. So it did complicate things, but really nice to have my OB actually there, who would be rounding in the mornings and could come see me. So I felt a lot better being at home in Nebraska. Of course, finally discharged from the hospital round 2, because I am here at home and feeling so much better. I had one more procedure after I was discharged from the hospital, and after that procedure have felt like myself again. And honestly, I don't know if it's because I experienced such a high level of pain, but my normal pregnancy back pain has not been bothering me for this past week, and I'm feeling a lot better. Again, it could be this comparison of the pain I was having with the kidney stone versus the back pain, and something has happened in my head where I'm thinking like, oh, this pain isn't so bad, so I'm just glossing over it. Or maybe my back pain is a little bit better, so that is maybe a little bit of a silver lining. But wild story, and something that I need to continue to deal with, because my history of kidney stones, I was kidney stone free for probably about 5 or so years, then got pregnant with Owen, had 2 kidney stones during my last pregnancy with Owen, no kidney stones in between, and then got pregnant again, and now just had another kidney stone. And a lot of the doctors that I was seeing basically said whatever medical condition you have prior to pregnancy, with all of the hormones and everything, it's just going to be heightened by the fact that you're pregnant. So if you have something going on and you are thinking about pregnant, you've never been pregnant before, or you are currently pregnant, just be aware that whatever medical conditions you have, really keep an eye on them while you are pregnant. Kidney stones, there's certain things you can do, like drinking more water, changing your diet. But I did talk to a nephrologist, which is a kidney doctor, and a few urologists about it, and basically they said it's possible that those tactics can help you a lot when you aren't pregnant, but it could just be really difficult for me to get a grip on kidney stones while pregnant, and it might be something that's potentially, I don't want to say inevitable, but just more likely to happen while I'm pregnant. So that's very unfortunate. I am crossing my fingers, no more kidney stones the rest of this pregnancy, but it has changed my outlook on how much I want to travel, or if I want to travel again for the last trimester of pregnancy. And because of that, I think I'm just looking forward to taking it a lot easier for my 3rd trimester, staying at home as much as possible in terms of not traveling and doing a lot of baby prep. I love organizing. If you don't follow Sophisticated Organization, you might not know that, but I am organizing obsessed. So all of these baby prep things I really enjoy doing. I'm gonna probably try and do them on the front half of the third trimester so I can relax and don't physically exhaust myself too much. I have things I want to do like freezer meals and getting all my postpartum supplies together, pulling out all of the baby gear, getting my bottles and pacifiers and other things like that sanitized. So lots of prep stuff to go, and I'm just really looking forward to the third trimester and finally meeting baby boy number 2. I am going to be continuing to share a lot more baby prep stuff here. If things are more organizing related, they will be on my other channel, so make sure you're subscribed there as well. And I want to thank you for being here for this motherhood journey as together we make it sophisticated.